In the fourth year of chasing after Aurora, I finally released the fixation in my heart and decided to be with Veronica, who had been quietly lingering at my side all along. On the fifth anniversary of our relationship, I planned a surprise during a business trip, using the travel as a pretext. Yet, by accident, I stumbled upon a secret Veronica had guarded for so long. All that matters is that Damien finds happiness, even if he never marries me, I thought bitterly. It turned out that Veronica had been pursuing me only to remove obstacles for the man she truly adored. In that moment, my desire to propose evaporated. With a heavy heart, I hurled the ring into the ocean, extinguishing any spark I had left for her, and resolved instead to return home and go through with the arranged marriage. Later, while passing by a partly open door, I could distinctly hear sounds coming from a private room. "Aren't you worried that Logan might someday discover you're faking things and then walk away?" Someone teased. I recalled how, not long ago, I'd noticed Logan glancing at jewelry, certainly planning how to propose to me. Veronica's tone had been laced with an unusual hint of pride when she mentioned it, as if she believed she knew me inside out after all these years. Suddenly, the small box in my hand felt burning hot, and I nearly dropped it. I reasoned that as long as Damien was happy, even if I ended up marrying someone I did not truly love, it was an acceptable trade-off. Standing quietly in the hallway, I listened as Veronica expressed warm affections for another man in front of her friends. Damien, the man who had been her childhood companion, had maintained a close bond with Veronica since they were young. When they first became involved, I had felt a surge of jealousy. I still recalled Veronica's angry retort. If she truly loved Damien, she wouldn't have chased after me for years. Now, with painful hindsight, I could only see how foolish I had been. The woman who once vowed to share her life with me had been driven by ulterior motives from the very start. In the end, I could only laugh at the tragic comedy of our situation. I never burst into that room to confront them. Instead, I climbed into my car and drove home. On the way, I stopped at a bridge and flung the ring from my pocket into the dark sea, discarding both the ring and my love for Veronica. When Veronica later returned, she carried a lively bouquet of roses. On catching sight of me in the living room, she thrust the blossoms into my hands with enthusiasm. "I figured you'd miss our anniversary because of your trip, so let's celebrate tomorrow instead," she said, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. I placed the bouquet on the coffee table and looked up at her, clearly a bit inebriated, but said nothing at first. Veronica was not angry. "I know you're not fond of drinking, but it's rare that we get together with our friends," she explained softly, leaning close as if to steal a kiss. I turned away and asked in a hushed voice, "What exactly did you discuss with them?" Her laugh was light. "Oh, come now, are you really upset? By the way, I even got you a tie." She produced a small gift box with eyes full of hope. "Where's my gift?" I inquired cautiously. "It's for next month, the 10th. And you haven't forgotten, have you?" Veronica playfully puffed her cheeks as if feigning disappointment. I shook my head. I had not forgotten, but the 10th of next month was the day I was supposed to marry back home. While Veronica went off to freshen up, I opened the gift box. Inside lay a purple tie. I always preferred blue, and purple had always been Damien's color. Almost at the same time, my phone buzzed on the table with a few messages. Absent-mindedly, I glanced at one of the notifications from a contact labeled "My Love." The most recent message read, "Veronica, I want a divorce." I froze, and when I tried to unlock the phone, an error message appeared. When we first began dating, Veronica had set the password as my birthday to foster a sense of security, a symbol of trust. I had never snooped through her phone until now, but compelled by desperation, I tried my birthday as the code once more. It still did not work. Suddenly, I remembered a photo Damien had posted on social media not long ago celebrating his birthday. Veronica had claimed she was going alone to his celebration and had returned only the next morning. I recalled that heated argument from October 20th when I demanded she respect some boundaries. I then entered the birthday as the password. The phone unlocked, but what I saw on its screen made my heart sink. The only pinned contact was Damien. Without mercy, I scrolled through the past week of chat history between Veronica and Damien. There wasn't any overt flirtation, but their tender exchanges made me feel as though I no longer recognized the woman I once loved. I couldn't pinpoint when things had changed, but our conversations had dwindled to trivial matters such as dinner plans. Every time I sent her a video or message, she would brush it off with a vague, "I'm busy, I'll look later." Yet with Damien, she detailed every small incident. How many dumplings she'd eaten, or even an encounter with a stray cat. The latest message from Damien said he disliked the purple tie and wanted her to pass it on to someone else. So even the gift I despised was something that didn't appeal to another man either. When Veronica reappeared, the phone had already been placed back on its stand. It rang, and she answered silently, her face clouded with worry as she explained that there was an emergency surgery at the hospital. "You should go to sleep first," she murmured before hurrying out with the car keys. The sound of the door shutting left the house steeped in silence, and I noticed that the incoming call was from Damien. No secret there. I remembered that in the beginning my heart had not been set on Veronica, but rather on Aurora. In my first year of college, after an accidental fall into a river, everyone said that Aurora had saved me. In gratitude, I inched closer to the aloof goddess, and slowly my admiration grew into affection. However, Aurora had always been interested in Damien. After 4 long years of being labeled a simp, I had become disillusioned and chosen to remain with Veronica, who had been quietly persistent all along. Over time, her efforts to understand me, such as befriending my roommates to learn my class schedule and even enrolling in the same courses, had moved me. I recalled how each autumn she would wait beneath the boys' dormitory to hand me the first cup of bubble tea. Eventually, I was swayed by her earnestness and accepted her confession on graduation day. During the 3 years we were together, Veronica was never short on gestures. She always prepared gifts on important occasions, even if they were not to my taste. Family and friends urged me to marry her, worried that I might miss out on what seemed a perfect match. Yet beneath it all, our relationship was built on deception. One sleepless night, I scrolled through my social media feed and found Damien's latest post. A photo taken at a bar with the caption, "There's always someone waiting for me in the same place." When I clicked on the image, I heard Veronica's voice comforting Damien, assuring him that even after a divorce, she would remain by his side. I watched the photos repeatedly, each frame deepening my torment until my phone battery finally died. Forced to sleep despite the turmoil, I awoke the next afternoon just as I was about to take out the trash. Veronica eyed the heavy black bag I carried, remarking in surprise at the disorder of our home. "It can't really be that messy, can it? You don't have to handle this anymore. You could hire someone." I replied curtly, "I won't do it any longer. There's nothing left for us." Inside the bag were all the gifts she had ever given me, from challenging puzzles that once made me think she knew my tastes, puzzles that were so long they spanned 3 meters in her own house, to cedar-scented perfumes and hiking sticks. Over the 5 years of our time together, while everyone admired the romantic surprises I received, the reality was that Veronica had been channeling her unrequited love for Damien into our relationship. I had been nothing more than a stand-in, a second Damien in her eyes. In that moment, all I wished was to erase the past completely. After she finished disposing of the trash and returned to her room, I carefully handed Veronica a neatly wrapped gift. "You said you'd give it to me next month, didn't you?" she asked with a gentle smile. When she reached for the package, I quickly reminded her, "Open it on the 10th." Though confused, she complied and placed it back on the table in the study. Soon enough, she reappeared, holding 2 concert tickets and shaking them excitedly. "I noticed you haven't been yourself lately, so I arranged for us to see a concert by your favorite artist," she explained. I had intended to refuse at first, but before I could, her words melted into acceptance. At the venue, however, I discovered that the tickets did not seat us together. Veronica, always thoughtful, accepted the one ticket nearer the stage for me while choosing a seat in the outer section for herself. I didn't protest. Yet during the intermission, a giant screen revealed Veronica alongside Damien. Their kiss broadcast in front of tens of thousands. Even though I had resolved to let go of her, a dull ache spread through me, and I quietly left for a dessert shop, hoping that something sweet might lift my heavy heart. To my dismay, I encountered both Veronica and Damien at the shop. There, Veronica was expertly ordering the most popular cakes, practically pushing them toward Damien as if they were treasures. Damien fed her a spoonful of cream, and she accepted it with genuine pleasure. I recalled that when we were together, Veronica would never allow herself to indulge in high-calorie treats, especially not when I was enjoying something sugary. In those days, she would admonish me, saying, "Why would a grown man eat such unhealthy foods? They only make you look worse." I had obediently cut out sugar for 5 years because of her words, but in front of Damien, all those strict rules vanished. I forced down the last bite of cream, the sweetness now sour on my tongue. Later that evening, Veronica returned with Damien, who had been forced out of his home after an explosive argument with his wife. "Don't overthink it," Veronica said matter-of-factly as she announced that Damien would be staying with us for a few days. "Should I clear the master bedroom for him?" I asked in a tone that belied my growing frustration. Veronica's eyes narrowed. "Logan, are you still hung up on the fact that Aurora ended up with Damien? I haven't even been mad at you, yet here you are, dripping with sarcasm." "I'm not angry," I replied flatly. "I just thought that since he's our guest, we ought to treat him well." Veronica's cheeks flushed as she silently led Damien to the master bedroom. A while later, she tossed a brand new quilt in front of me, saying, "Since you offered, you can sleep in the study tonight. And what about you? How about sleeping in the master room with Damien so you don't have to tidy up the guest room?" I retorted in equally flat tones. "Glad you understand. It was all just a bit of fun last night, nothing more than that." I listened impassively to her feeble explanation before gathering the quilt and returning to the study. As I lay in bed later, the sounds of laughter and teasing from downstairs gradually lulled me to sleep. In the dead of night, I arose and found Damien still in the living room, engrossed in a video game. Veronica, sprawled affectionately on his lap, made no effort to hide her closeness with him. At the moment she saw me, Damien set aside his console, stood, and lit a cigarette. "I'm about to finalize my divorce from Aurora," he announced. "Looks like you, the fool, will only ever get the scraps I discard." He continued, "And as for Veronica, the one who pretended to be with you for my sake, she'd cast you aside in an instant with one word." Damien's tone left no doubt. He knew of everything Veronica had done to earn his favor over the years, and I alone had been left in the dark. "I'm leaving," I said quietly. Veronica, who had been half asleep, stirred awake when she heard our conversation. "Why aren't you asleep yet?" she asked, clearly confused. Before I could reply, Damien, seizing the opportunity, feigned a burn on his hand with his cigarette. The sound of his feigned pain prompted Veronica to rush over, only for Damien to quickly hide his injured arm behind his back. "It's nothing. I just slipped," he murmured, casting a furtive glance at me. But when Veronica noticed a small red mark on his hand, her anger immediately turned toward me. "Logan, are you out of your mind? If you have a problem, confront me. Why hurt Damien?" She trailed off, then declared, "I'm going to a hotel for the night." Damien tried to mediate, but only fanned the flames of discord further. Veronica's face darkened as she commanded, "Apologize to Damien." I replied calmly, "Why should I apologize? I haven't done anything wrong." Her temples throbbed with fury as she demanded, "If you hadn't woken up in time, would you have really beaten Damien up? I never thought you capable of such cruelty. I'm deeply disappointed. Apologize, or this is truly the end for us." I searched her eyes for any sign of the love we once shared, but found only a cold emptiness. I lowered my gaze and spoke in a rough whisper. "Forget it. It's just a small injury that'll likely leave only a scar." Damien, standing behind Veronica, sneered provocatively. After his comment, Veronica's anger boiled over. In an impulsive flash, she snatched a fruit knife from the counter and slashed my arm with deliberate force. I gripped my bleeding arm as crimson droplets fell slowly onto the floor one by one. In the aftermath, Veronica left with Damien. Before departing, she told me to reflect on my recent behavior. I wrapped my wound with a towel and calmly dialed the emergency number. Later, as I sat in a hospital bed receiving stitches, I couldn't help but let a bitter smile creep across my face as I signed my name. The doctor looked at me with disapproval. "Such a severe injury. Why didn't your family come with you?" I explained coolly. This wound was inflicted by my ex. Amid sympathetic glances, I continued. To be precise, she's not truly family. For several days afterward, Veronica did not return home, and I could only follow her latest actions through Damien's social media posts. While she gave me the silent treatment, Veronica was busy hiking with Damien to watch sunrises. She even posted messages seeking an expensive divorce lawyer. Damien, ever the joker, commented, "Are you so eager to see me divorced that you'd marry me instead?" Veronica merely replied with a shy emoji and a sarcastic wish for them to have kids soon. After closing the app, I noticed a plane ticket dated the 9th of this month as I packed. Later, Veronica burst back into the apartment, trying to brush off the situation as a mere joke. "Do you really have to make everyone miserable over this?" she asked. I couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh as I replayed the events in my mind. "Can't I make a joke, too?" she retorted. "You can't just dismiss me with your business trip excuse." Veronica took a deep breath and waved her hand dismissively. "Fine, go on your trip. We both need some time apart anyway. You always blow the smallest things out of proportion. How am I supposed to marry you if you keep doing this?" Her eyes widened in disbelief as I countered, "You choose not to marry me if that's how you feel." Veronica's pupils dilated with shock and she stuttered, "Do you realize what you're saying? Didn't you already start planning your proposal? Why now, out of spite?" In a flurry, she tried to usher me out as if to erase the bitterness of my words. I glanced around our now nearly empty apartment and reminded her, "Don't forget to open the gift I got you tomorrow." At the mention of the present, Veronica's pallid face brightened momentarily. Blushing and avoiding my gaze, she had clearly expected a proposal, but the ring had long ago been lost to the sea, leaving behind only an empty box. Although Veronica seldom had the patience for elaborate pretenses, that day she played along. Standing by the door as I left, I faintly heard her murmur, "Logan, when you return, I'll give you my answer." What she did not know was that I would never come back. In time, she would indeed find someone to marry, but it would be with another woman. That night, Veronica lay awake, haunted by an indescribable feeling that everything was spiraling out of control. When the clock struck midnight, she hurried to the study and retrieved the gift box from a drawer. She had long known that I was planning a proposal, and when she saw the ring box she had anticipated, her smile was at first tender. Yet when she opened it, it was empty. At first she suspected that the ring had simply slipped out, but after thorough searching, she discovered that the tie she had gifted me was still inside. Confused yet undeterred, Veronica mused, "Why do all the presents I give always seem to come back to me?" Determined not to let this minor mishap spoil her mood, she snapped a photo of the empty box and posted it on social media with the caption, "Soon to be a married woman." When someone asked if she was finally joining Damien, she snapped back in the comments that it was me whom she would be marrying. Strolling into the living room, she eventually noticed dried bloodstains on the sofa, a stark reminder of the violent episode from earlier that night. The discolored marks had nearly soaked through the fabric, and a fruit knife lay abandoned on the floor, casting an eerie shadow over the scene. Realization hit her then. She'd gone too far. Frantic, Veronica called me repeatedly, but my voicemail, cold and unresponsive, was all she received. Eventually, she opened our chat history and, after several hesitant attempts and rewording, sent one message. "Does it hurt?" The only reply that greeted her was a solitary exclamation mark. Slowly, Veronica scanned the apartment and discovered that every trace of me had been wiped away. In desperation, she searched every room until she collapsed onto the floor. Moments later, her phone rang, and she answered only to see a message from Damien asking if she could accompany him to court the next day for the divorce proceedings. This time, the ever-pleasing Veronica declined, and as she frantically contacted mutual friends in a bid to learn my whereabouts, I had already disembarked in South City. There, waiting at the arrivals gate, was Celeste, holding a sign with my name. Though this was our first meeting, she exuded an oddly familiar warmth. As I approached with my luggage, she noticed the fresh scar on my arm and asked with genuine concern, "How's your hand?" In my rush, I had forgotten to cover the unsightly mark, and the awkwardness of our encounter led me to apologize. "No, I didn't mean that," she stammered, her eyes soft with worry as she gingerly touched the healing wound. A subtle tingle of reassurance spread through me. Celeste immediately booked a hotel room for me and arranged a warm breakfast. After enjoying steaming wontons, I felt somewhat revived. "You're such an understanding person," I remarked, teasingly adding, "I'm sure you have many suitors. So why marry someone like me whom you barely know?" I admitted that I had been so deceived by Veronica that I could not shake the lingering doubts. "But, Celeste," she countered softly, "did you forget that we met when you rescued me from drowning years ago?" Celeste's eyes sparkled as she recalled the memory. I blinked in surprise. "You were the one who saved me. Who else could it have been?" She insisted gently. I recalled that day when she had risked everything, even as I clumsily got in your way. Celeste pointed to a small scar on her cheek, a memento of that fateful moment. My thoughts swirled as I realized I had long mistaken a rumor for truth, never questioning who had really saved me. I had assumed it was Aurora, and when I discovered she had feelings for Damien, I stayed away. But when Celeste explained that she had once fallen for me as well, admitting that our encounter on a blind date had set something in motion, I felt a lump in my throat. "So, when did you begin to like me?" I asked, voice trembling. "It was the summer after the college entrance exams," Celeste replied. "When I was traveling in Yunnan and got bitten by a snake. You were there to suck out the venom. I realized then that you, my future husband, had made me so happy." For a long moment, words failed me, but Celeste's warm smile and radiant eyes reassured me that our bond was genuine. As we prepared for the wedding, Celeste took my hand and led me to the makeup room. Once all was set, I stood at the far end of the red carpet, watching Celeste in a couture wedding dress slowly advance toward me. Just as we were about to exchange rings, a sharp female voice interrupted. "I object to this marriage." Veronica, still clad in the wrinkled clothes I had left behind, and bearing dark stains that hinted at past injuries, rushed to the front of the ceremony. "Logan, I won't let you marry another woman," she declared slowly. I met her gaze with cold detachment. "What are you doing here?" I asked bluntly. Tears streamed down her face as she pleaded. "Why are you so cruel? You're marrying someone else behind my back, and now you're treating me like I'm nothing." In previous quarrels, Veronica's tears would always have softened my stance, but now I was resolute. "Enough," I said curtly. "Damien's divorce isn't your concern. Focus on your own life." At that moment, security guards moved forward to escort her out. In the chaos, a glass of wine tumbled to the floor, shattering into countless fragments. Veronica cried out desperately, "Logan, I won't let you marry another woman." Her cries repeated as if in an echo until eventually Celeste, who had remained silent until then, took the microphone. With calm determination, she explained that this segment of the ceremony symbolized peace and safety for our future, and the guests responded with applause. I resumed the ceremony, now fully committed, as I placed the ring on Celeste's finger and sealed our marriage with a kiss. Even though Veronica continued to watch with wide, pained eyes, I could not feel anything for her. After the ceremony, Celeste changed into a red dress for the toasts. She introduced me to her relatives with genuine warmth, and after a few rounds of celebratory drinks, I stepped out into the hallway for fresh air. To my surprise, Veronica was waiting there. "Logan, tell me, is all this a sham?" she whispered, her delicate shoulders trembling and her eyes red from crying. "I'm truly committed to this marriage. The person I'm going to spend my life with is Celeste," I replied firmly, hoping that would make her see the reality of our situation. Yet Veronica persisted. She raised her hand, showing me the ring I had once promised to her. "You left this for me," she insisted, her tone pleading. "I know you haven't stopped caring for me, don't you?" I responded coolly, "That ring was thrown into the sea a long time ago. I don't have room in my heart for it now." Her eyes searched mine desperately as she demanded, "But I saw you picking out the engagement ring. Why did you throw it away? Do you really despise me?" In her hopeful gaze, I could no longer find any remaining spark of the man who once loved her. If I had given that cursed ring to Celeste, she would have been upset. And what about me? Do you not care that I'm hurting after 5 long years? I have no desire to continue this charade. Her words faltered as I shifted the blame. And what about you? You pretended to love me just to keep Damien close, all for the sake of keeping him tied to Aurora forever. Weren't you suffering too? Veronica took a deep breath, stunned into silence. "You knew all along," she whispered. "If I hadn't been the one deceived, I might have been moved by your sacrifice. I gave everything for you. I already fell in love with you. How could you just cast me aside?" I gave a bitter smile. "I've been nothing but a fool in all these years. I no longer feel the sting of your tears. All that remains is the cruelty of a heart that was never sincere. I can't forgive you, and there is no going back." I turned to leave, only to be intercepted by Celeste. She glanced at Veronica, who was still sobbing, and gently grabbed my arm, urging me to depart. Veronica lunged forward, trying to slap Celeste, but I quickly pulled Celeste back. "What are you doing?" I demanded, my anger mounting. "Am I going mad, or is it you who has sacrificed everything for a fleeting infatuation? You prefer to marry a stranger rather than stand by me." I replied flatly, "When I loved you, you never valued it. Instead, you took my kindness for granted. Now you regret it, but it's too late." Veronica opened her mouth, but no words could undo the hurt. "Our relationship ends here," I declared. "Don't ever contact me again." For a long moment, Veronica pleaded, "I'm sorry, I was wrong. Please give me another chance. I always wanted to marry you and no one else, but I felt nothing stirring inside. I'm married now," I said quietly, "and I must remain loyal to my commitment. Your regrets are yours to bear." I then led Celeste back into the banquet hall. I had expected that with these final words, Veronica would finally disappear from my life. Instead, she waged a quiet war of attrition. In an act of bitterness, she purchased a villa next door to our new home. Whether I went for a morning jog or strolled after dinner, I felt the unsettling presence of someone watching me from the shadows. Veronica never made an overt move. She merely observed, leaving me with the frustration of being constantly monitored. One day, I noticed on our security cameras that she had placed a small gift box at our door. Furious, I stormed outside and caught her in the act. "Take your things and leave," I shouted, hurling the box away. Its delicate wrapping tore open, revealing a luxurious silk tie, the very blue hue I loved. "Logan, I didn't mean any harm," she murmured weakly. "I just wanted to mark our 5-year anniversary with a gift." I scoffed. "I don't care for blue. You claim not to, yet everything about you screams blue. Your folders, your phone wallpaper, even your favorite Lego sets." "Why are you lying?" Veronica whispered, her face contorted with grief. "Then tell me, did any of the gifts I gave you ever truly please you?" Heartbroken, she snatched up the discarded present and fled in mortification. At that moment, Celeste reappeared, clutching a bouquet of rare blue star flowers. "I intended to buy you flowers," she said apologetically, "but I seem to have chosen the wrong ones." I took the bouquet from her hand and said, "I like them, I really do. Blue star flowers symbolize mutual trust and living in the moment. After all my heartbreak, they've rekindled my passion for romance." Celeste's eyes softened as she compared the sincerity of her love to Veronica's past deceptions. I couldn't help but smile as I gently pinched her cheek, admiring the 2 dimples that appeared with her smile. "You're not afraid of anything," I teased. We've already obtained our marriage certificate. There's nothing improper in our love. Her shy laughter and the intimacy of our shared moment transformed the atmosphere, making the night feel magical. In the days that followed, Veronica never appeared before me again. Celeste and I grew closer, discovering shared interests and nurturing a love that deepened with every moment. It wasn't until a class reunion that I heard news of Veronica's fate from a mutual acquaintance. With her influence, Damien had indeed finalized his divorce from Aurora, but Aurora blamed Veronica for the collapse of her family. In retaliation, Aurora hired thugs to assault Veronica so brutally that she was left with partial paralysis, a fate that condemned her to a wheelchair for life. In a swift legal move, the Sue family took Aurora to court, and though Damien was expected to stand by Veronica, he betrayed her at the last moment, pleading for Aurora's mercy. Veronica then realized that Damien had never truly loved her. The whole scheme of divorce and remarriage had been a sham. Damien's heart had always belonged to Aurora. Unable to accept that truth, Veronica pressed on with the lawsuit. In the end, Aurora was sentenced to 6 years in prison, yet Veronica was unsatisfied that Damien had escaped without repercussions. Using the Sue family's influence, she ensured Damien lost his job and even drove him into a spiral of gambling. Ultimately, Damien accumulated over $10 million in debts, and it is said that on his final day he cursed Veronica repeatedly, wishing her a miserable fate. On New Year's Eve, I received a call from an unknown number. After a long silence, a single question emerged from the other end. "Logan, if I hadn't hurt you with that knife back then, would there have been a chance for us?" As the words faded, fireworks exploded outside. Once silence returned, I softly replied, "No." To this day, Veronica never understood the real reason I left you. There were many reasons, but above all, only sincerity can beget sincerity. You were never honest with me, and I refuse to carry the pain of a heart that has been constantly scraped like a dull knife. I would rather leave than endure the perpetual agony of loving someone who never loved me in return. After the call ended, I heard a faint, "I'm sorry" from her. At that moment, the last embers of fireworks dimmed in the night sky. Outside in the courtyard, Celeste waved invitingly. The sky lit up once again, its vibrant colors reflecting on her face as she smiled even brighter than the fireworks. I handed her a lit sparkler. She held it gently, as if painting joy across the darkness. "Look," she exclaimed, "doesn't that trail of sparks resemble a shooting star?" I nodded, smiling. Then Celeste suddenly grew serious. "This is the first New Year I've spent with you," she said softly. I stepped closer, taking her hand, and promised, "Every New Year from now on, I will be by your side." In that quiet moment beneath the eaves, with only snow around us, Celeste and I began to glimpse a future that was still long and full of possibility. Meanwhile, on the other side of our tangled story, Veronica's own account unfolded. Damien and I had grown up together as childhood friends, though he had never seen me as anything more than a younger sister. I had once believed his shyness concealed secret affections, but it wasn't until our university days, when he began dating Aurora, that I realized his disinterest was genuine. Still, one obstacle remained in my pursuit of love. Logan, Aurora's admirer, and Damien's relentless rival at every social gathering. I had once thought that if only Logan would start dating, Damien's troubles would vanish. I took that to heart and, imitating the way Damien had wooed Aurora, began pursuing Logan. Surprisingly, at our graduation party, my persistence paid off when Logan finally accepted my heartfelt confessions. In the early days of our relationship, I always felt an awkward guilt because Logan was so kind to me. That guilt gradually twisted into resentment, and I started causing trouble, making biting, sarcastic remarks even when he was enjoying a slice of cake. His expression then resembled that of a forlorn stray. I could never bring myself to apologize, even though I later noticed that Logan stopped buying his favorite treats for me. Despite everything, his affection remained unwavering. Perhaps I had been spoiled by his endless kindness, always assuming that no matter what I did, he would forgive me. So when I learned that Damien wanted a divorce, I rushed to see him, hoping to find some clarity and perhaps even relive the love I had once longed for. Deep inside, I had always fantasized that it should have been me in Damien's arms long ago. Yet, as Logan gradually withdrew, I became disoriented and, in a moment of clumsy false accusation, hurt him, costing me the one who truly loved me. It was as painful as watching him kiss another at that fateful concert, a betrayal that left me to witness the person I cared for marry someone else. The consequences of my betrayal were swift. I became a broken shell, a cripple not only in body but in spirit, and I spared neither Damien nor Logan from the fallout. Left with nothing but an empty heart, I sank into despair, watching Logan's happiness only through the curated posts of mutual friends. By the third year of his marriage, he had even become a father of twins. Though he claimed happiness, I couldn't bring myself to offer any sincere congratulations. I turned to drink, hoping to drown the ghosts of the past. In my dreams, I clung to the memory of loving Logan, but no fantasy could ever replace the truth. Eventually, I reached a breaking point. In a moment of desperation, I jumped from an overpass. As I plummeted, a long-forgotten relief washed over me. I had once been sincere in my pursuit of Logan, mistaking my genuine feelings for disdain, and in the end, I lost my chance at true happiness forever.